Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Scott Garber and Andrew Petcash back in the saddle on the Profluent Sports Podcast, where we are highlighting founders, investors, and advisors across the whole sport landscape. Today, we are super excited to not only highlight a very exciting moment in time in the volleyball world, but we're also highlighting an early member of the Profluent Sports community who is doing amazing things as they bob and weave and iterate and grow the volleyball market. Excited to introduce the CEO, founder of Balltime, which has recently been acquired by our good friends in Lincoln, Nebraska, Hudl, and Dan Banon and Tarryn Moss. Welcome to the podcast. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing great.
Excited. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited as well, guys. I mean, you have sent absolute ripples through the sports tech ecosystem, through, all the really cool things you're doing with AI, and then, this emerging sport of volleyball. We're excited today, as we do, we're going to understand the origin story of Dan and where Balltime really came from, what's going on in the volleyball market, and then, really start to get a clearer vision of where Hudl's going and, how this, your two worlds coming together is going to improve the landscape. So, Dan, I'm going to pass it up to you, man. Let the listeners know a little bit about who you are and, when this vision of Balltime really came on the radar.
Yeah, 100%. First, I'll just start with a quick shout out to Profluence. I've been following the media for a couple of years now, and if you're listening to this, there's an amazing resource if you work in sports tech, which is the Profluence community that I joined a year ago. So really excited to do the pod with you guys. And yeah, so a little bit about myself. I'm a volleyball player, always have been. And that's kind of how Balltime started. So the inception story is a really cool one because my co-founder, Tom, is also a volleyball player, beach, to be more specific. And he started Balltime as a passion project. He's a beach volleyball player. He always recorded his games. And he just couldn't stand having to sift through hours of footage to be able to find the moments that would enable him to become a better player and do analysis. And so the first version of Balltime was a very simple one where you process the game and you get all the downtime removed, which just makes it a lot easier to find your plays. From there, started working on a couple different models to be able to identify actions and players automatically. We met through the beach volleyball community, which is a really cool testament, I think, to the kind of community-based nature of sports. And also for volleyball, there's just this really cool global network. So we got put in touch and just kind of started doing market research, user interviews, starting to see that there was a real market and a real need for that. And so that initial pain point from the point of view of a player and trying to apply it to his own needs morphed into starting to create the first versions of Balltime, incorporating the company, and then started doing individual subscriptions that were a very simple product. And as we kind of progressed, moved along and met a lot of people along the way, started building products for teams, started working on different segments. We've always had a focus on the youth sports ecosystem because it's incredibly rich and dynamic in the States. There's a lot of pain points. There's a lot of people that you can create value for. And so over time, we just kind of built more and more features. And I think one of the cool things about Balltime that we've always leaned very heavily on has been the community and essentially just having a direct plug from us as players and from the people that we met that compose the team at Balltime. We just had so many volleyball players that reached out and started saying hey, what's this all about? Can I join the team? So even inherently as a team, we were always super motivated to kind of see volleyball succeed and build tools for that community. And externally, we also just had a lot of people that were really excited about what we were doing and gave us a ton of feedback, a ton of ideas, and kind of enabled us to create the product that became Balltime.
So cool, man. So cool. We can take this in a bunch of different directions. I'm going to tee up the first question, then Andrew, I'll punt it over to you. But, Dan, as we were diving into Balltime, obviously you guys built a robust product with a bunch of really cool features. But one of the things that I found really interesting, sort of akin to what we've done at Profluence, is this private Facebook community that you guys had. And you guys have 3,600 members. Talk to me. Was that community sort of existing and then you built the features, or how did you use those two in tandem to create that product market fit?
Yeah, that's a great story. So the reason that I'm connected with Tom is through a common friend that we have called Matan, who's also a beach volleyball player and who also helped out Tom in the very early days of Balltime and became employee number one. He created the Balltime community group as just the very first resource to kind of have the first kind of feedback that would come in on the product. And over time, as people just kind of started organically joining, we put it in the product in a few like key places. It just became this amazing open community where people would come and post feedback, product requests, support sometimes. But the cool thing about that is that you have this amazing like iterative feedback loop where you just like you're directly in tune with customers. And so, even from like a pure user perspective, if you're requesting something and getting a response maybe 24, 36 hours later about that feature being embedded in the product, you're creating an amazing brand equity and like just engagement into the actual product. And you just get to iterate super, super quickly and ship product super, super fast. So that's been like one of our favorite things. And the beyond the kind of like impact on the product, you also get to be in direct contact with your users and your customers in a very, very like close and personal way. And that I think is something that is helpful from a business perspective, but it's also just, it's so nice if you're working on something to just kind of have that, direct line of communication with your users, especially, seeing as we're all volleyball players. It's just like, it's been like one of my favorite parts about Balltime for sure. So it's interesting that you start off with that.
No, it's so cool. And I think that's the first nugget for everyone listening. It's, building a product or a feature or features that are going to enhance the market. I mean, having that direct connectivity back to your audience not only makes it a better experience, but we found, like you said, Dan, it just makes it enjoyable. You get to know the people on the other end of it, and you can show up in Long Beach and all of a sudden you have 20 friends that you can go play volleyball with, and it's through something that mutually connects you. So really neat. Andrew, coming over to you, man.
Yeah, I was going to go up to Tarryn. Obviously, Hudl, big in the football market where it started, where a lot of people think about it, and obviously across most sports, but volleyball and increased interest, obviously. What are you seeing in the space? How are you guys viewing it? And obviously then what led to the Balltime integration?
Yeah, it's really exciting. So Hudl's headquarters is based in Lincoln, Nebraska. And so I think we've been a volleyball state in a lot of ways for a number of years here. You can look at the success of the Huskers, and a number of us were part of kind of the attendance breaking opportunity at Memorial Stadium. And so you got to just witness the excitement in the volleyball space that has really driven over the last few years. And I think we've been monitoring that for a while. Really excited about, participation levels from boys and girls in the U.S. across high school and club, and then also just the growth of the professional leagues. And I know that's something Dan and I kind of connected on early on. I went back and had some fun of trying to find the first email to Dan that just said, "Hey, I just want to connect and learn a little bit more about what y'all are doing and how we see the space." I also was a volleyball player, and so I remember seeing setter tendencies coming out and being a setter and thinking, that would have been amazing to have when I was playing. I wish I had that. And so just kind of connected off at that first point to say, hey, let's have a conversation and see what that looks like moving forward. It might just be a good relationship to have and a shared passion for volleyball. And that kind of generated from there to say, hey, I think we could do something pretty amazing together. And that's really what led us to being here today. So yeah, volleyball is an important sport in the state of Nebraska. And also it's been really exciting to see that grow across the board.
Super cool. And, I know you guys have a global footprint. Dan's coming in from your London office. For all of our listeners, if you guys don't mind sort of painting the landscape of the volleyball market, both where we're at right now and what's on the horizon as you guys, start to fully integrate Balltime and take the Hudl approach to the youth market and everything in between.
Yeah, Dan, feel free to chime in here as well. But it's been a lot of fun over the last couple of weeks getting our teams together and say, hey, what could we do? What does that look like? I think there's a number of pieces that we get really excited about for the future. Balltime's technology really enables that concept of real-time turnaround, or as close to that as possible. And so we've always said there's a path that in the future you're like, getting off the court, you kind of have your post-game chat, and then you start to say, hey, what do I need to do before our next game in the club space or prepping for that in the high school and college space? And we really see that as a reality now of saying, hey, let's get you that first insights and data to help you understand how should that change your game strategy moving forward. I think practice is a really exciting piece that Balltime has focused on and done a really incredible job of getting people excited of understanding, like, how do I use data in practice? We've never been able to do that at Hudl. And so that's some of that, but really carrying this all the way. I think Dan mentioned it, of saying, hey, really focused on that club and youth market and seeing a lot of opportunity. We're really excited about tying that in and saying, hey, what can we do all the way to the college and the professional teams that Hudl has worked with, high school, et cetera, and having that broader footprint, as you mentioned, to all of those volleyball teams that we work with, and really going and taking that to a much larger level. But Dan, I'd be curious if there's anything else that's been sticking out to you as we've been doing this as well.
I think just the general state of the market too, which is that we're diving into this head first and trying to merge different platforms, Balltime, Hudl, Volumetrics. And there's a lot of progress and enthusiasm for volleyball at very varying levels. In the US, the participation rates in high school for volleyball have been progressing super steadily over the past couple of years. There's all these pro leagues that are starting, and I think there'll be a trickle-down effect over time where the more exposure they get, it's like a virtuous circle. There's going to be more and more high school level players that are going to start playing as well. Internationally, there's also just been like a general kind of growth of the sport. And I think that, with the kind of enabling that democratization of access to like these tools is going to help us kind of bring that in front of people, both in the US market and in the global market as well, which is super, super exciting.
I got to tell you, I was so naive. Like I knew the volume of the volleyball market, but I don't think I really understood the culture of the volleyball market. And I got introduced to the brand Slunks, and all of a sudden I felt like I was part of the community now. It was so. Dan, I'm curious, like with your guys' tool, like do you see more growth on the beach side, on the hard court side, and do you see is it parallel men and women on the growth side? Super curious, any tidbits that you have there, sort of across the scope of the game.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the engagement and the adoption that we've seen in Balltime is somewhat reflective of the market. So we've seen a lot of, early on, it's like we started off with beach volleyball because that was kind of the roots. Tom's a beach player first and foremost. And from a purely technical perspective, it's easier to do multi-object tracking, multiplayer tracking, action identification when you're doing it with 2 players on the court rather than with 6. So like starting off with beach was kind of a logical way to get started, which was awesome. And then, we kind of pivoted into indoor from there. And it just, enabled us to kind of have like the different scope. And the cool thing, I think, over time is that we were able to just kind of start addressing different segments. Like, we started in beach and then we went into indoor, started with like club, because club, you just have a lot of different needs. You have recruiting and you have game analysis. There's just a lot of different people that use the product in the club space, and then started working on high school international. So I think one of the cool things about Balltime is that we have this flexibility and ability to kind of like match the product to the actual needs of each segment. And that essentially is kind of how we also look at the market.
Very cool.
Tarryn, I'm curious, coming up to you, obviously you have Volumetrics, now you have Balltime. How do you keep an eye on the emerging sports tech landscape and, where you should make next moves? I'm always fascinated by how you keep an eye on that landscape.
Yeah, I love that question. One of the things that we've really focused on is just building relationships in the market across the board, and keeping an eye on who our coaches and our athletes are talking about. I think there's a really great story from Volumetrics, which is that Coach Cook is the one that introduced us and said, hey, you all should be keeping an eye on this company. I think this is a great opportunity for Hudl. Let's have that conversation. And so I think we really try and listen to the coaches and athletes that we work with of saying, like, who are you seeing in this space that gets you really excited? But also, there's a lot of really great conventions, and the sports tech community, I think it's a really close community. Everyone is open to reach out, have a conversation, introduce you to someone. And from there, just trying to figure out, hey, where do we go next? I think we've definitely focused on the team-based sports. So that helps us kind of narrow our focus instead of trying to have to think about every single sport. That would be a lot. I don't know how we would keep track of everything happening there. But since we kind of keep that focus on the team-based side, it enables us to say, hey, let's go have those relationships. And then if something continues from there, we'll figure it out. I think we're always looking at, hey, we want to impact all of these users in the best way possible. what are those opportunities that are out there? What can we do together with someone like a Balltime, which is really exciting, and let's have that conversation. Are we both jazzed about that vision together, and let's keep that going. But some of those conversations just stay as good personal connections, and we
Makes
see from
sense.
there.
Dan, curious, when you came into the market, how did you evaluate it? Who did you put as sort of, maybe it's competitor, maybe it's potential, complementary or partnership or ultimate acquisition, how this worked out when you came into the space? How did you put that, internal market map together?
Yeah, for sure. So I think when we started just doing some of the basic market research, that a lot of the better content actually, Andrew, came from your post, I have to say, and some of the posts around like the big four, I think like the smart AI camera articles that you wrote. So I think Hudl, we always saw them as the biggest player in the market because of the sheer scale, the fact that they've been around for so long, and there was a couple different actors that we kind of saw on the market, but what we kind of found is that there's this really complex problem to solve, which is the emergence of like data and video and like making those two come together. And for volleyball, Hudl was the biggest player in the market. There wasn't really that many other players that were in there. And so we really tried to focus on that really like specific subset of the value chain. There's a lot of actors that are taking care of like the capture, the live streaming. There's a lot of actors who are on the like recruiting networks and stuff like that, and there was just kind of like an empty space in the middle, which is kind of why we went for that, with like the USP of being able to do it with AI. And so I think in that market mapping, we kind of looked at it from like a value chain perspective and saw that there were a lot of actors in a couple different spots, and we kind of honed in on the empty space that we saw, where there was really only Hudl, in our opinion, that was kind of like the had the best product to have there.
Go ahead, Scott.
Dan, I want to stay here real quick because this is a really cool moment in time. Obviously, we work with founders and investors within our platform, and when we start these journeys, some want to build unicorns and some build for an acquisition, right? And so, Dan, I'm curious, from the founder lens, when you were having to make these decisions, right, when it was time to acquire, when the conversations were getting more real, who were your trusted confidants? Like, how did you go ahead and navigate this to make sure you were putting your team and your investors in the best position to succeed as, the product moved forward?
Yeah, I think so. Over time, we maintained a fairly small team, I think, through Balltime's journey, where we ended up at 12. Everyone's joining Hudl, which is super exciting. Cool. And even from a raising perspective, we did some fundraising, but I think we kept it fairly, I wouldn't say minimal, because it was really super helpful for us to grow. But sometimes you just hear about these like massive pre-seed or seed rounds, and we didn't necessarily go for that. The sports tech space doesn't always lend itself to that type of fundraising. And then I think when we started chatting with Tarryn and Hudl, it was kind of a seamless process because of because of how Tarryn explained the relationship building in the sports tech space. It was incredibly natural and organic. So like the first touch point was, we've been, following you guys. It would be great to get to know each other, hop on a few calls, kind of have those very earnest conversations that we've had in the past with a lot of different players in the market, because you just have that, level of proximity. Maybe it's like the common passion. Maybe it's the fact that we're all working on sports. So there's that inherent passion there that these conversations are just like super nice to have, I think, in this space. And that's been one of my favorite things. And so then over time, starting with that kind of positive sentiment of like, okay, let's get to know each other, let's chat, let's see if we have aligned visions, let's see what we both want to build together. That natural progression just kind of morphed into, talking about the acquisition and going down that route. And so for us, it was pretty like natural progression to just kind of, honestly, just, kind of do it internally and rely on the good standing relationship that we built from day one with Tarryn and the rest of the team.
I think it speaks volumes, like, I mean, when sports is built on relationships and, I mean, a lot of folks we see try and build the relationship when they want the action to happen immediately. And so it's a big shout out to Tarryn. And, we've heard nothing but amazing things from, the market about you and, the team that you've built over there. But for everybody listening, I think that sports isn't built on connections. It's built on relationships. And so you never know where those relationships are going to go. So I think that's nugget number 2 from Dan, where it's like, just start forging relationships with no real expectations, and they start to deliver in ways that you might not even expect down the road. So it's one of the things we harp on here. Go ahead, Andrew.
And nugget number 3 is raise more fair valuations for your company and not too much, because then you have the option to do something like a Hudl where your investors still win, the founder can win, the employee's company can win, and then the acquirer can win. Too many raise at way too high valuations and way too much money early on, and you box yourself out in your only option. So anyway, just throwing that in because Dan sort of said that in between it in there as well.
Tarryn, I want to come up to you through the product lens, right? Like, I mean, when we start to go ahead and acquire, there's obviously multiple different reasons why, a Hudl would look at a product suite to bring in-house. Like, what is as you guys are moving into acquisition stage, what are you guys doing from a product lens to make sure the transition from Balltime standalone to the existing suite is a smooth transition and, it's a nice fluid experience for your end users, which is ultimately what we want to create there?
Yeah, one of the things that we've set up right away when we sent out emails to everyone and said, hey, jump on a call with a product team member. Let's have a conversation about what do you love about Balltime. Some of those individuals also had experience within Hudl previously as well and can kind of say, hey, I love this as well. What does that combination look like for them that gets them really excited about the future? I think we've had over 30 conversations in just the last 2 weeks with coaches and parents that are saying, hey, this is what I love. Please don't take this away. And we build that into our product roadmap from the beginning. And that also serves as an opportunity to go back to each of those coaches and say, hey, you gave this feedback. It was really valuable. Check out what we've kind of released here recently. So kind of connecting back to that Facebook community concept of bringing everyone together and being able to celebrate that. So that's one big push that we always have at the beginning is before we even set the roadmap, let's figure out what people love. And then let's figure out how do we do that and get people excited about what that future is. And you kind of get to pitch that vision in those conversations. And someone will say, hey, I love that. What about recruiting? What about messaging? What about communication? And we get to tie that in and have those conversations of, hey, yes, we want to kind of meld that all together to build that. So bringing those customers along with us the whole time, having those conversations is really core to that product side. I think the other side is understanding what is Hudl really strong in. It's kind of that scale, right? The video uploading, the capture side, as well with the cameras, recruiting and connecting all the way across the sport. Balltime, when we were having some of those first conversations, especially just the excitement of, hey, everyone's a volleyball expert. And so we can tie that in, bring that into the team as well, which is really exciting. But also, hey, this AI technology is something that is incredibly strong. It's accurate. It has that real time or less than an hour turnaround time. That is going to be just a big impact from a perspective of how do coaches, athletes, analysts all prepare for that next game or next practice is a big deal. And so part of it is pulling this together quickly, but right. We want to make sure that we don't rush this and then negatively impact anyone, but we also want to bring all these tools to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible as well. And so we have brought the Balltime team in, as Dan mentioned. And so everyone's come over, has a lot of great expertise on that side, teaming it up with a couple of our product teams as well to go and build that integration plan and figure out how do we get that off the ground. We have so many different channels happening right now in Hudl. It is so fun to see the excitement of people saying, hey, we've already got this up and running. Come check this out. And so excited about that journey over the next handful of months as well.
We're bringing AI to Lincoln, Nebraska. Who would have thought, man, that the Cornhuskers are evolving day by day. It's so cool to see. This is really insightful, guys. Dan, I think last question coming back to you is, now that the acquisition has happened, what's on the horizon? Like, I mean, what gets you most excited as you look out into the rest of 2025, both from the Hudl lens and then the macro volleyball market? Oh, you're on mute.
Macro volleyball market is there's so much stuff happening. It's kind of hard to list it out. The League One volleyball that started in January. There's a new league that just got announced. There's the PVF that's starting. So I think from that perspective, super exciting to kind of see everything that's happening. And I think from the like product roadmap perspective, there's this incredible vision of like, unifying all of the different tools and products that Hudl has in its ecosystem and creating this kind of unified version from like youth all the way to the pros. And the idea that that's all happening under like one roof, powered by a mix of, best of Balltime and Hudl coming together. There's just like a sense of scale, I think, that's really exciting. And the fact that using a lot of the stuff that Hudl has built over the years, live streaming modules and recruiting tools and operations, there's a world where we can just create this incredible value chain that has all these different components, and you have the ability to create a ton of value for users. So I think that's the most exciting piece for me right now.
Scale is fun, right? Like now it works. Now let's go bring it to the rest of the world. And when you have that nice match, it feels like this is we're just going to add fuel to the fire here. So super excited to watch the run that you guys are about to go on. Andrew, take us home. Any last questions on your side?
Yeah, just go to Tarryn next on, what other trends or markets or areas are you keeping a close eye on as we head through 2025?
Absolutely. I think AI is a big one, right? We're seeing that move so quickly. What is even possible? I think on the optical side, we've seen across a lot of different sports, the opportunity of even tell me, your speed, your distance, your everything else. I think there's a lot of potential on human performance overall on that side. I think the real-time data is going to continue to drive the sport forward and how we shift on the data side. I think there's also just the new concepts that are out there that I don't even know, right? I don't know what AI is going to do in 6 months. We've been integrating some stuff on the LLM side, which is super exciting, getting that Gen AI pieces and seeing those game summaries. But hey, there's so much out there that we're all going to learn together, I think, on what's possible. And I'm really excited about that. I think there's a lot of consolidation happening in the market as well right now. And so just kind of seeing what those plays are, how we can continue to have the biggest impact. I think at the end of the day, that's the great part about being in sports, right? We all want to go out and build those relationships and have the biggest impact on the sport possible. And so it's a lot of fun to have that excitement across the board in sports right now, and what can happen from a business side, as well as, as Dan was mentioning, from the professional leagues and everyone else kind of spinning up. What's going to happen? It's a really exciting time to be here and see what's going to evolve.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, listen, guys, we are beyond excited. And, this is a full circle moment for us, Dan, to hear some of the call outs from, early content days to joining the community. And as we continue to grow and scale our member platform, humbled, but this is why we do it, right? It's how do you guys, how do you continue to push innovation, build the right relationships in order to ultimately shape the sports market. So it's in a good place when my 2-year-old daughter grows up and can participate and, play volleyball, and she'll probably be a libero because we're not too tall on this side, but tongue in cheek, guys, this has been such an incredible conversation. If anybody listening wants to learn more about what they're doing, is the Facebook group still live? How can they reach out? Where can they go ahead and learn and keep up to date with what's going on?
Yeah, I think the community group on Facebook, and then if you type in Hudl plus Balltime on Google, there's a beautiful landing page where there's typically, if you wanted to book some time to speak with someone at Hudl, you can do that. And yeah, I think those are the two best resources.
I love it, man. Well, Dan, listen, big time congratulations. It sounds like you're in fantastic hand with Tarryn and team, and we're going to have to do a check-in maybe in a year and see where the volleyball market is, but most importantly, what kind of cool products you guys have come up with. So best of luck as you navigate 2025, and we'll do this again soon.
Awesome.
I love that.
Awesome, guys. Talk soon. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.